since you guys saw me, and I know that um, a lot of people have been waiting for it, and I appreciate all the support and all the people who have reached out about me starting the podcast back up, which I never really stopped it. I just took a break to concentrate on some other things. I actually traveled a little bit, went to a different location and was focusing on my career, which for a lot of my listeners, they don't really know, but I'm an IT consultant. Um, and from the things that I talk about on my podcast, you probably may not have gathered that, but but I am, and I like to call myself a spiritual tech guru, um, because I do believe in balance, and I believe that you absolutely have to design technology around life, and not the other way around. So, with that being said, today I wanted to, of course, reintroduce myself and bring back some of the old thoughts and old episodes that we've had that, some of the things that we've talked about, and kind of go over those and see where we are going in the future. Because as a wise man once told me, you know, you don't really know where you're going until you know where you've been. And so, a lot of people have, you know, listened to my podcast, which, is pretty awesome, pretty amazing. I appreciate that. And, I see that there's a few that people kind of gravitate to more than others. And so I'm going to talk about that a little bit. And me being in IT, me being a quote unquote data guy, right? I look at this from the perspective of gaining insight, right? And not just empirical insight, but also spiritual insight, right? And it tells a lot, So, I really want everyone to kind of, join into this conversation and chime in. If you're watching this on Facebook, if you're listening to this on Spotify or any other podcast platforms, or watching it on Spotify, because I do have video podcasts enabled on Spotify as well. Or listen to this on Anchor, my main source. Then, I really want you to think about what it means to you, these topics that I'm going to bring up. And I want you to start having a discussion about this so that I can integrate that into the show. Okay. So, one of the main things that I like to do and is reflect, right? So much so I had a podcast about reflection, right? And, I kind of gave some of my thoughts and my feelings about it. And some of the things that helped me and that I've seen help others, so definitely I want you to reflect on it. And I want you to be able to communicate, which is another one of my podcasts, communicate to me what this podcast means to you, right? I know what it means to me. It's almost like a journal for me, right? To write down my thoughts and my feelings, unfiltered, uncensored, unimpeded, uninterrupted a lot of times. Unless I have a guest, which, and that's fine. I don't see that as an interruption. I see that as the integration, right? But one of the main things that, I like to talk about is, the community. One of the things I like to talk about is the community, mental health, um, and how all these things kind of weigh in on us as people, right? And so I'm just getting it pulled up here. And so with that being said, again, there are a few things I want, I want you to kind of reflect on. What is it that in life excites you? What is it? What is it that drives you in life? And if you don't have an answer for that, that's fine. It's totally fine. But I want you to think about it. Not necessarily have the answers, but I want you to think about it. And the other thing I want you to think about is if you had everything in the world, what would you want? That's a pretty deep question if you just look at it as surface value, because you're asking yourself right now, like, if I have everything, then what would I want? Right. And so that's the question I want you to think about. If you had everything in the world, what would you want? I know what I would say, and I know what a lot of people do say, right? But I want to hear what you say. My listeners, my audience, my fans, my people. I want to hear what you say about this, okay? Because your thoughts and your feelings are important to me. I don't want you to ever feel like you don't have a say in what goes on in this show, because you absolutely do. You absolutely do. And I know people get a lot of value from what I say, but I get a lot of value from interacting with people, with, other people. A lot of times part of my job, my chosen profession is consulting, right? So I consult people. I give people ideas all day, every day on a lot of different things. Even, and this is not something new. This is something I've done for the greater part of my life. My friends have always come to me for advice. My friends have always come to me for listening ear. I've always been a listener. My friends have always come to me for emotional support, women and men, or males and females, and so with that, there's always been this part of my life that's been present. So, and I'm equating that to the podcast, right? This has always been something that's been a part of me. So, I enjoy it. I don't look at, I see a lot of times when you're on social media and you're on these, different platforms and stuff like that, people do a lot of copying, right? People do a lot of take this and send it back out the same way, right? And that's fine, because a lot of times the way that I see that from a spiritual standpoint is this: it's just like dropping a pebble into the water. You see ripples. That's the same way with thoughts. When you drop a thought, or you bring a thought into existence, rather, it creates ripples. And when I see that, that's what I see. I see ripples. I see the thought expanding and becoming, because if we're thinking about it, the water is all one entity, right? And that's how I view life. Life is all one, right? And so the ripple, the thought, is going through life, right? It's expanding, it's becoming a part of life, right? Now, depending on what type of thought it is, it could promote life, or it could be detrimental to life, right? It could help or it could hurt, right? And so that's what we have to be careful of, because depending on, and a lot of people likes to say, oh, that wasn't my intention. Well, we have to be careful using this as our go-to reasoning, because even though it may not have been your intention, it's still our responsibility to take our time and think about the outcome, right? Not necessarily meaning that you never do it, not to get paralysis, right? Decision paralysis, as they say, but for you to take the time to reflect. Take the time. We know that the society is built to not really facilitate that, right? And that's by design. And the reason why it's like that is because if you can't take the time to think, then you can't make the right decisions. If you're always rushed to make a decision, then you'll never make the right decision, right? Because you can't. You can't. Your brain, even though it can process and do all these amazing things, you are built to think. As we look into nature, right? And nature is the ultimate teacher. So always look back to nature. If we look at nature, right, we see that nature is not in a rush. Nature doesn't go out and rush into anything. You know what I mean? That's not how nature is, right? And therefore, that's not our nature, right? Because this is our nature. Nature is us, right? So it's not in our nature to do that, It's really in our nature to take our time and allow things to unfold as the seasons do, right? Which is another podcast that I did, and I talked about this. So I want to encourage you to go back and listen to all the seasons that I've done. But I just want to, with that being said, I want to talk about my episodes, right? Because the data is very interesting. It's very interesting, and I'm gonna share this with you. My highest listened to podcast is called Positive Thinking. That's the highest listened to podcast that I have, which incidentally is like the first one that I had. So if we extrapolate, if we take out the fact that it's the first one that people get to when they get to my profile or whatever the case may be, and we just look at that because it's by far, the highest listened to one, we'll understand something. We'll see that people want to think positively. People want to. They really, really want to. And they want to know what that sounds like. They want to know what that sounds like for other people. They want to know how that relates to them. They really want to think positive. So what does that tell us? What does that tell us? Your nature is positive. Your nature is positive. It really is. And I just want to, I want to take this time to just say to everyone who listens and may share this out to other people, you know what I mean? I want to say to all of y'all, I want to say that that's dope. That's dope for you to want to do positive, to think positive, to be positive. That's amazing. And I just want to give you the applause for that. I want to give you the props for that, right? Because that's what it takes. There's a saying that says, evil only flourishes if good does nothing. So if you're not doing anything for good, then yes, evil will flourish. And all you may experience is something that's negative, right? But that's because you're not allowing the positive to flourish, right? By being yourself, We'll take it, I like to talk about community issues. So we'll take it into the community. In my hometown community, they're having a violence epidemic. Okay. Now, this is happening all over the U.S., questionably all over the world. So, not to say that it's worse here or there. I'm not going to get into that type of argument. But what I am going to say is this. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Just like this podcast, people are looking for something. They're looking for something positive, but all they're seeing is negative. Now, I'm no clinical psychologist. I'm not someone that does that, even though I understand the principles. I'm not somebody, that's not my field. So I'm not here to try to do anything like that. I always like to say, if you feel like you need that, definitely contact a professional. Okay. But I will say this, because it's evident that people are looking for something positive, and if we're able to give them that, right? And when I say we, I'm talking about the people who can maintain the positivity long enough to be able to create something positive that other people can be a part of, to help bring them out of whatever it is that may be causing them not to see the positive, right? Right? Because we all know when you see the positive, you're going to react to it. Why we know that? It's nature. It's nature. You see a baby, you feel happy, right? You feel when you see somebody, when you see love, some people get uncomfortable, but you're going to have some kind of, a lot of times, because, and depending on your experience with certain things, it may cause a adverse reaction, right? But as a general principle, these things give you good feelings, right? I see love and it makes me happy. I see people in love and it makes me happy, right? It doesn't make me feel bad about that. It doesn't make me feel bad even if I'm not with someone. You know what I mean? Like I don't look at it that way, because incidentally, we're taking, I have a method to my madness. So as because when you have a correct understanding of what love is, you won't do that. You won't get selfish. You won't feel jealous. You won't feel envious of things. And this really applies to everything, but I'm going to focus in on love and there's a reason for that. So, you won't feel all of those types of feelings because you understand love, and you understand that their love is the same love that's for you too. Like, and I want to be clear about this. You don't need anyone to give you value in that way. But it's a clear indicator to you, right? If you ever need it. It's a clear indicator that love is love. Love exists. Love is there. So if you ever need a reminder, you can look at people who are in love and like, man, that's a beautiful thing, right? That's my thought. So, incidentally, bringing me to my next point. Love. My episode about love, part 1 and part 2. Those are my second and third top podcasts. Love. People want love. People want it. You want love, and that's okay. That's okay. You don't look. If somebody trying to make you feel bad about wanting love, then it's probably because they feel like they don't have it themselves. That's just the way it is. If they make you feel bad about wanting love, then it's probably because they don't have it themselves. And the next podcast, right? The Journey Inward, the yogic sciences. In this podcast, I had a guest, Hermione, and I recently just talked with her, and she's doing well. She's doing her thing, and I'm so amazed by her and what she does, And I was so grateful because I didn't reach out to her. She reached out to me, and from Instagram, and that meant a lot to me to have someone that I didn't even know reach out to me and say, "Hey, I love what you're doing. Can I be a part of it?" That meant, whew, that was a very good experience to me. Okay. And she spoke about the yogic sciences and how yoga helps you to, it's one of the ways that helps people to dive inward to understand themselves, right? So why would that be number four? Why do people think that would be number four? And if you're hearing this on a platform where you can respond, please respond. Let's start a conversation about it, okay? And I'm gonna tell you what I think now, but we can talk about this because I think it's a very interesting point, okay? And I'm also teaching you how to read data too, if you're ever into stuff like that. So, the journey inward, the yogic sciences, right? So people want to know how to connect with their inner self. They want to learn how to do that. They want to know when people look at me and they see, oh, I wonder how, one of the main things I used to get and still get sometimes today and not so much now because people just kind of know who I am. But I used to get this a lot. Like, why are you always so happy? People used to ask me this question. I've had people hate me for no reason whatsoever. And they would just ask me, like, why are you always so happy? Why are you always smiling? Why are you always smiling? I would just simply ask them, why aren't you? Because to answer that question is it's kind of funny. Because for one, you know, just to say this, like, your natural state is happiness. Your natural state is blissfulness. That's your natural state. That's why your body can produce those same chemicals that you go looking for outside of yourself within you. That's why your body can produce that because that's your natural state. That's your natural state. You're naturally supposed to be happy. You're naturally supposed, the other emotions happen, right? But that's your default state is happiness, gratefulness. Why? Because you're part of nature. You're part of nature. And in many texts, many scholars, many um, holy men, many prophets, messengers throughout the years have said this. They've said this in so many different ways. But when the Garden of Eden story, it's telling you right there, your natural state is happiness, blissfulness, paradise. That's your natural state. You cause the diversion from that in whatever way that you do. It's part of your nature, but it's just the truth. So if that's the truth, then people are starting to want to get back to that part of themselves. Let's go back over the top four. I'm only going to go over the top 10. Okay. I'll say top 10. But so those top four: positive thinking, love, part one and part two. Part two, and they're even actually. They're even as so technically that's just second place. But I'm gonna count it as two or three, just for the sake of brevity. Okay. The journey inward, the yogic sciences, right? That's the next. And then if I was doing this live, I would ask and say, what do you think the next one is, right? But the next one is positive values. Wow. Positive values. Okay, so we had positive thinking, love, the journey inward, and now positive. So look at that. Let's think about this. Now, if we think about this from a chakra standpoint, positive thinking, right here, right? Positive thinking, love. So we got the heart chakra, the journey inward, the yogic sciences. So we got the crown, right? We got the crown. Technically, that could be all of them, but we'll say that's the crown. And then we got positive values, right? So the positive values, we can say that's throat, we can say that's sacral, and also root, and solar plexus actually. But positive values. I did a podcast about positive values, right? What are positive values? Well, go back and listen to it, and you'll see what I say they are. But you'll see that positive values, there's a lot of positive values. So, of course, I couldn't go over everything in that. But you'll see, like, the core part of you, the core parts of who you are, the things that make you you. And I'm not talking about the you that you put up on social media. I'm not talking about that you. I'm talking about the you that if you strip away all of that, what are you left with? Who are you at a core? If you didn't have anybody to observe you, if you were just doing things, go back to that question that I asked. If you had everything in the world, what would you do? Or what else would you want? Right? And that teaches you what your core values are. Because in the absence of lack, which means abundance, right? I'm doing a little math word problems for y'all. In the absence of lack, there is abundance. So what in that abundance and not needing for anything, what do you want? You start to want the things that you can't obtain, the material things. You don't want to, you don't need it. So what do you need? Oh, I need love. I need this. I need that, that type of thing. So, and I might have but this is down the line. So hopefully you've already answered that question, and you don't really, and if your answer is different, then hey, let it be different. But I'm not trying to guide anybody, well, I am a guy, but I'm not trying to force anyone to think like I am. That's not the purpose of this. I'm sharing my thoughts. But so once you get in tune with those positive values, right? Then you understand, like, okay, so this is who I am at a core. And so now I can navigate everything from a clear perspective. I'm not, diluted, altered in any way. I have a clear understanding as to where I'm going based on who I am, not based off of what somebody thinks I should be, not based off of what they are, and I just want to be like them. None of that. Okay. So next on the list is mental health and relationships. Wow. So now people want to know about mental health and relationships. Interesting, right? I think so. People are concerned. More people are concerned about their mental health and the health of their relationships. I talked about that. I was talking about a lot of information that I get from one of my favorite therapists on Instagram, Nedra Tawwab, right? She's an amazing therapist, amazing. And she focuses on boundaries. And that's a very good thing, because in our society, people have started to forget what boundaries are and what the purpose of them are. It's not, boundaries are not to control you. That's not what a boundary is. Boundaries are to set you free. Boundaries are there to enable you to maintain your mental health by not allowing someone else to dictate to you who you are. Okay. We hear about, I saw an advertisement about this just the other day, gaslighting. You hear about this being an epidemic now, right? People are gaslighting at all-time highs now, because people are tapping into some knowledge that they don't really understand. And see, they start using it on people to try to control people, see, instead of using it to maintain their control of their own mind. See, that's really what, mental prowess is all about. It's all about discipline and control of your own mind. It's not about trying to control somebody else. That's the dark side of psychology. When you start trying to gaslight and try to manipulate people into doing what you want them to do, then you've kind of strayed from the path, because that is not the path. Okay? True power is controlling yourself. It's not controlling others. So if that's true power, then what is the other thing? It's an illusion. It's an illusion of power. People think you're powerful. They think you are, but you're really not. You're really not. And don't shoot the messenger. I'm just telling you what the ancients say. That's just what they say. So, and that's just the truth. So, and I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and she was saying, we was talking about this, and I hit her with that too. It's not about who's right and wrong. It's about what's the truth. We both should be seeking the truth. We all should be seeking the truth. It's not about who's right or wrong. See, that's an ego type of situation. You want to be right. I got to be right. Well, okay. As long as you are on the side of truth, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Right and wrong is only a concept when you're not living in truth. I'm going to say that one more time. Right and wrong is only a concept when you're not living in truth. You have to worry about what's right and wrong. Because if it's the truth, it's the truth. There is no right truth and wrong truth. It's just truth. Period. So when you're in the timeless state, when you're in your divineness, you're not thinking about right and wrong. You're thinking about what is the truth. And so that is what, guides you mentally, which brings us to our next one. And I'm telling you, I'm not making this up. This is what the numbers say. And if you're into numbers like that, I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. Numbers don't lie, as they say, right? Social justice. So people are looking for that. People are looking for justice. People are looking for the truth, right? People say, and not to say people can't say it that way, hey, it wasn't right. That wasn't right. Not saying that. Please continue. I'm not saying don't say what you need to say. What I am saying is this, that when someone else may say, oh, that wasn't right, I say justice. I say truth, right? What is the truth of the matter? The truth of the matter is this. And this social justice episode was talking about some of the social injustices that have been happening. And this was during the pandemic, right? So some of the social injustices that have been happening during the pandemic. And so, that being said, social justice is a truth, meaning it is a fundamental right for human beings to feel safe and to feel free, in the sense that you shouldn't have to fear anyone, right? Because there are certain inalienable rights that you have as a human being that should never be violated. And that is the truth. It's not about what's right and what's wrong. It is the truth. The same, and I in my early understanding, the way that I used to say it was this, which I didn't even know that tied into the ancient knowledge like that, but I did, but I didn't. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. If you understand that, if you know that you wouldn't want somebody to do you a certain way, then you don't do them that way. Now, this can get confusing because sometimes we're not thinking correctly and we want people to do certain things to us that really is not good, right? And so you may want other people to do that to you. So therefore you would do that to other people. See, so we have to be careful. It's a all inclusive thing. It's not separate, even though we talk about these things in separate ways. It's a more comprehensive thing. Okay. So, which brings us to our next point. The spiritual man. I mean, that's the way it fell. The spiritual man. What is the spiritual man? The spiritual man is a man who's guided by spirituality, guided by his higher essence, not by his lower desires. It doesn't mean you don't have lower desires. It just means you're not guided by them. I'm not going to, schedule my time around that. I'm going to schedule my time around this. See? Which leads to more discipline mentally, right? So, spiritual man, people want to know, what is a spiritual man? Pretty cool, right? And let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 so far. What would you think the next one would be? That's pretty comprehensive. But what would you think the next one would be? That's right, I'm gonna tell you. The next one is the New Year episode that I did. New Year, New You. New Year, New You. And that one was it was very monumental to me. Okay. And I'll tell you the reason why. In this episode, I spoke about a spiritual experience that I had, that happened to me during this time frame, because there was a new moon. I think it was a new moon or full moon. I think it was a full moon that happened around this time. And, and so I was doing meditation, and I had a very, very powerful experience with that. A very powerful experience with that, of releasing past traumas and past hurts. Had some, I was going through a lot, and I'll share this with you all. Since the beginning of the pandemic, I have been living the digital nomad lifestyle, right? And I had always said that I wanted to do it, so I kind of manifested it into my life, right? So I always said that I wanted to do that, so I did. And so, I would be going from place to place, um, Airbnbs, hotels, whatever the case may be. Um, Staying with family, whatever, right? And so, you know, it was a very amazing experience. I really had a lot of fun doing that. Met a lot of great people. Um, had some great experiences. Traveled across the country, um, on the train. Visited different places that I had always said I wanted to go. I mean, it was just an amazing experience. It was an amazing experience. I have no regrets on that. And it was also an amazing experience spiritually. Spiritually, it was an amazing experience too. So this episode, New Year, New You, it was a new year, it was a new me. So I was kind of bringing you along for the journey, and encouraging you to remake yourself as well. Because when you remake yourself, you're still you, right? It's more of a metamorphosis than than anything else. You know what I mean? So remake yourself may not be the best word for that, but um, emerge, evolve. We'll say that. Okay, so New Year, New You was number 9. Okay. Now, what would you think number 10 would be? Number 10 was financial well-being. And I had a friend of mine on this one, and she spoke about credit and how your credit affects, everything in your life. She's still in that business. She's very successful in that, and she's doing well. And I love her to death. Let me rephrase that. I love her to life, and she's been great. She's been great. So I've known her for a long time, and she's really amazing. Brandy, shout out to Brandy. Uh, you know, that's my girl, and yeah. So people are looking into financial well being. They want to know how to do it. They want to, which we see that you can go on any social media platform and you can see where people are talking about you know financial well being. It's a buzzword, right? That episode aired back in February of 2021. The New Year, New You aired January this year, 2022, if you're watching this in the future. Um, and so, yeah, so, this was during the pandemic, this is in the middle of the pandemic. People were looking for financial well being. But as you can see, all these other things came before that. So what does that tell you? People aren't as focused on the things people have been traditionally focused on. So that means we are changing as a people. That's what I wanted to get to in this episode. I wanted to say this because what you don't hear a lot of times is that things are changing. It may not be a fast process. It may not happen in a speed that is perceptible to the normal eye. But if you take your time, which goes back to what I was asking you to do, and I'm pleading with you to do this, reflect. Reflect on the things that mean the most to you. Reflect on why they mean that to you. Because some things, what I found on my journey is this. Some things need to be stripped away. Some things have to be stripped away. You can't take everything with you, okay? And it's not because you can't. It's not because of that. It's because once you have moved to a different state of understanding. Certain things just not going to make sense to you anymore, right? Like it's just not going to make sense to you, right? When you were a baby, anything made sense. You touching everything, you trying to put everything in your mouth, whatever. It's all of it makes sense because you're learning everything. As you got to be a toddler, a young child, you don't do that as much, you still kind of a little inquisitive, you still doing, still like you might touch the stove, you might try to, eat something that might, be on the floor or something like, but you don't just put anything in your mouth. You don't just touch anything. See? Right? Then as you become an adult, you kind of got your criteria. Now okay, I'm not going to put nothing in my mouth that I don't know what it is. I'm not going to touch nothing that I don't know is not hot. It's not going to harm me. It's not going to, cause some type of bodily harm to me. I'm not going to touch it. You know this because you know the dangers. You know what I'm saying? You know what those types of choices can bring about to you and your well-being. All right. So it's the same way. It's the same way. And spiritually, as we grow, we learn things that, okay. Yeah, that, and that's kind of the root of that saying, don't knock it until you try it, right? It doesn't mean you got to try everything. That's not what that means. It just means that, understanding yourself is the true way of knowing what and when to do something. I'm not just going to do anything at any time. That's not, no. Spiritually, that doesn't make sense. Spiritually, it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. Why? Why do you ask? Well, let me tell you. Everything in nature is on a cycle. Everything has a time. There's a time for spring. There's a time for summer. There's a time for fall. And there's a time for winter. It doesn't all happen at one time. It just doesn't. And the reason why it doesn't is because if it did, you couldn't enjoy it. See? People want to say that, it's so, like it's made to keep you from something that you would enjoy otherwise. No, that's not why. It's there that so you can enjoy it. You can't enjoy something and not have time to enjoy it. I mean, you have to enjoy it. You want to enjoy your food, you take your time eating it. You can scarf it down. But did you really enjoy it? No, of course not. You didn't have time to, quote unquote. So anything when you're talking about that construct of reality, time, then which time is an illusion, okay? Just understand that first. And then understand that you use it as a construct in this reality to help frame certain perceptions for you so that you can get an understanding of something. If you didn't understand time, you wouldn't understand timelessness. Okay? That's how it works. That's what the duality is for. It teaches you that within the infinite, one moment can be infinite. One moment is infinite. But you only can understand that if you understand what a moment means. What does a moment mean? A moment is a point in time. A fixed point in time. Okay, so that can be infinite. So there could be an infinite point. Well, yeah, it is. But I don't want to get too deep into that. That's going to be another podcast, all right? I got to say, I miss doing this and I miss talking with you all, and I hope everybody has been well, and I hope that this finds you well, and I hope that it gives you some sort of benefit. I hope it gives you some sort of, enlightenment, and that, it can be, used for you in your journey. And please share it with me. Share with me everything that was happening with you during the pandemic that led you to this point, to where you're listening to this podcast or watching this podcast, and help me understand a different aspect of life through you. Okay. And with that being said, this is the Intelligent Gentleman, and I appreciate all of you, and I'm grateful for the experience, and I'll see you on the next one. All right. Peace.